All right, so let's go ahead and do a current dependent source. Let's go into I think it's F. So this is a current dependent current source. Let's do the current dependent voltage source. Let's see, where do I find that one? F, G, maybe it's H. Current dependent voltage source. Okay, so let's take that. Okay, so let's go ahead and throw a current source. Then I'll put a resistor. But then what I'm going to need is I am going to need a 0 volt voltage source like what we saw earlier, because that is what I'm going to use to measure the current and pass that value into my current dependent source. So you can see that there's no inputs. Like the voltage dependent sources have a plus and a minus terminal, so it's easy to just pass a voltage in the graphical interface. We can't do that with the current dependent sources, so instead what we have to do, so we have to make our 0 volt voltage source, and then we have to, let's label this VM again for V measure, and that's the actual current that I'm going to be measuring, okay? And that's what I'm going to pass in. So when I can two-finger click on this device and I get a bunch of fields here, the value is actually the name of the source where I'm measuring my current. So I just said it's going to be VM, so we'll call it VM. And then value 2 is going to be the gain in this case. So in this case, since it's current dependent voltage, we're going to want to measure by something pretty large because I'm going to have milliamps of current. Let's just make our gain 1000, and I can make both of these visible on the schematic, so let's do that. So this is telling me that I'm taking the current from source VM and I'm multiplying it by 1000, and that's going to be the voltage that I get on this source. Okay, so let's make this let's say a 3 milliamp current source, and then we'll go ground, ground, oops, move this ground down, and just grab it and let's wire this circuit up. And then let's see what, let me label this V out, and then what voltage would I expect V out to have? Well, it's completely independent of this resistor, but let's just make it 8K, something random. So I know I have 3 milliamps flowing in this circuit, so I'll have 3 milliamps flowing through VM. 3 milli multiplied by 1000 gives me 3, so I expect to see 3 volts at V out. Let's go ahead and put our .op in here, and then we can run the circuit, close the window, and let's go put our little data label here. And there's my 3 volts. Okay, so that is how you use current dependent sources. Just for one last little look here, H is the current dependent voltage source, F is the current dependent current source. And so you would do the same thing with this one. If you wanted a current dependent current, you would just click in here, make sure for the value you put the name of the source where you're measuring the current, and then for the value 2, that's where you put the gain. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end this video, and this kind of wraps up the operating point DC simulations. In the next set of LT Spice tutorials, we're going to be looking at pulse sources and how to do stuff in the time domain. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end this here.